Hi, I'm Bill Ward. I'm the host of the UDRcast and the owner of BILLWARDLIFE. And just like to give a shout out to you all and thank you for always supporting us. We can't get this stuff done without your help. I'm asking that you might join us on Patreon or go to my website and click the link and help support us, for a cup of coffee a day or a pack of smokes a month. We could really use your help in supporting the podcast and the work that we do. And if you'd like to message me, bill@billward.life, or find me and, we can talk about it and I'll fill you in more. Thanks a lot. Bye. Hi. Welcome to the UDRcast. I'm your host, Bill Ward, coming to you live from the recovery capital of Canada. Thanks for joining us again. And today in the house, we got a good friend of mine, becoming a really good friend of mine. And we're going to do some things together in the world of recovery and helping people. I got my friend Brenda M. How are you, Brenda?
I'm good. Thank you for inviting me today.
Yeah. You're not nervous?
No. Well, okay, I lied a little bit probably. Now that we started, I am a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. And those butterflies will go away real quick. So yeah, we're here to talk about, I'm not sure.
Okay.
So what have you been up to lately?
Lately, just taking it easy, but also helping you do some stuff and helping another organization do their stuff too. So yeah, just helping organizations get up and running and so that they can help people.
Nice. You get a lot of asks for those kind of things, eh?
I wouldn't say a lot. I would say a few here and there. I do get one every once in a while. Somebody say, hey, can I use your experience or whatever? So yeah, once in a while.
I'm going to get you to pull that mic just a little closer to you. Don't eat it, though. So you were helping some people do other things. I know a lot of your background is working with inmates in incarceration in prisons and that kind of thing. And what other backgrounds do you have?
So I have a background in addiction, obviously, right? And my whole life has been about helping people, right? When I had my kids, I volunteered as a teacher assistant, and then I got a teacher assistant certificate. And then from there, I went to helping, so that was little kids. And then from there, I went to helping teenagers. And from there, I got some courses in youth work. And it was actually there when I helped create a program called the Bridging Program in Swift Current Comprehensive High School. So the staff had the idea to create a program for at-risk youth who were coming from grade 8 into grade 9, because our high school in Swift Current was 9, 10, 11, and 12. And so they had really low success with the at-risk youth that were coming out of grade 8. So together, myself and a teacher kind of created and molded this program, and we called it the Bridging Program, bridging kids from grade 8 to the high school. And so we thought, okay, well, we'll take them from grade 8 and we'll put them in grade 9 and we'll provide them as much support as we can. And then hopefully they'll stay in high school. Well, it became very, very successful. And so we went from grade 9 and then grade 10 and then grade 11 until graduation. And these kids actually stay in school. We had a good success rate. We had some kids that didn't end up graduating, but we had a really good success rate. So did that for 10 years, and not for the whole 10 years, but for, I'd say, probably about 7 years. I did the Bridging Program. And then I went off to college to get some addiction counseling training. And then while I was there, I did a work experience, I guess you call it, a practicum placement at Drumheller Institution, and actually fell in love with the Insert Your Warrior program. And so I wanted to go work there. And so I did everything I could to get there and ended up getting offered a job there for 90 days as the drug strategy counselor. And at the same time, I got an offer to become an addictions counselor, and I turned the full-time offer down and took the 90 days, and people were like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, I just trust. I just prayed about it and trusted, and yeah, so that 90-day stint turned into almost 10 years working there, 10 plus years.
So you've always made crazy decisions.
Yes, I guess you could say that for sure. When I first moved I moved from Manitoba to Regina. I had all my kids in Manitoba, and then I moved to Regina. And when I moved to Regina, my then husband used to work away a lot, and I was by myself with these kids. And so I thought, well, how could I meet other people, like other stay-at-home moms? So I created a stay-at-home mother program out of Herkimer School in Regina. And I got to meet other mothers. Some of them are still my friends today, right? And so I think that was the first time actually I started something, right, from nothing. So got support from the school to have our meetings after hours in the school, and we had a mothers group, and I got to meet other mothers and learned, how to, be a stay-at-home mom and still be a woman, right, kind of thing. And so did that first, and then like I said, it just kind of, my life just kind of one crazy decision after another. Yeah, I guess you could say that. Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, what I've known about you in the time that I've gotten to know you is you make decisions that really make people go, "What the fuck are you doing?" Right?
Yes, very true, very true. Maybe to other people it seems that way, but to me, they're decisions based on my heart and also on my integrity too, right? And because I have a background wasn't the greatest, like my childhood wasn't the greatest and stuff. So, and my life, wasn't the greatest. So, I think my whole life has always been about helping other people. So, where I feel, I guess it's kind of an ego thing too, right? Is where I think I feel like I get the most out of life when I'm helping other people. So, so my decisions are based on how can I best feed that, right? Like where is it possible for me to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Manitoba?
Mm-hmm.
Whereabouts?
I was born and raised in Port Prairie, Manitoba. Mm-hmm.
And how many brothers, sisters?
I have one brother and two sisters. Yeah.
And when you say you didn't have the best upbringing, can you go into that a little bit?
Sure. So I grew up in Portage, and my mother she had married my father, and they moved to Calgary, and my father he was an alcoholic at the time, very abusive, and my mother left him right after she had my younger sister. And the very first memory I have of my childhood is looking through, remember back in the old days, like the closet doors that were wooden slants, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can remember my brother and I in the closet with, peeking in between the slants while my dad, would beat up my mom. And that's basically the only thing I remember about my childhood. And then I don't remember anything until we lived with my grandma until we moved from Calgary back to Portage and we lived with my grandma for a while. And then once my sister was older, we moved to Montreal. We were there for I don't know how many years. But my mother was more about, and I don't blame her. I think she probably grew up with trauma too, back old European, thing. And my dad has a Native ancestry. So I think that kind of they didn't mix very good, maybe, I don't know, kind of thing. And so I was always like my older sister was, favored by my mom because my mom had her when she was very young. She was 15, and that was like way back in the 50s, right? That was kind of, that was very taboo back then.
Mm-hmm.
And so she always took care of my older sister. And then my brother, he was the only boy, so he was, kind of thing. And then my sister was the baby, so she was, coddled. And so I was kind of like the outsider. And I think I never felt loved and accepted or I never felt like my mom was proud of me. So for a whole lot of my life, I just, tried my best. I was the kid, look at what I did in school, kind of thing, because I was very smart. But again, just like going through the motions, I guess, handing somebody something and them saying, oh, that's good, kind of thing, whatever. It's no big deal. So, and then I think that kind of culminated into me looking to fit in or to find acceptance, love, affection from, other places, right? And so it just turned my life upside down, and I ended up having 2 children out of wedlock. And
How old were you?
I was 20 when I had I had her in January, and then I turned 20 in March. Yeah, so 19, 20, yeah, so. Or 20, 21? How old am I? How old is she? I think I was 20, actually. Yeah, I was 20 when I got pregnant the first time. And and then it was not a very good relationship at all. Very, very volatile, very abusive. He was a user. And so, and that kind of led me down the path, a little bit. So, so, and then it was just like I said, I think, when you're young and you go through trauma and you grow up in an environment too, and my mom she met a man when we moved back from Calgary, when we moved back from Montreal, she met a guy, and who was actually my sister's husband's brother. I know, hillbilly sounds like I live with a hillbilly life. Exactly. But then she focused all of her attention on him, and he was very abusive to us. He used to call us half-breeds and stuff like that, and treat us very disrespectfully, and do things that were very, very inappropriate, in front of us and stuff like that. And so my brother left the house when he was very young. He was almost 15, I think, when he left. And I left when I was 15, and my younger sister left when she was 16, I think, something like that. So we all left the house very easy. And like a 15-year-old has no business being out on her own, kind of thing. And back then we didn't have the supports like kids do nowadays, right, and stuff. So I think I just carried the trauma, things that happened to me. I carried the trauma with me, and then I just kind of survived, kind of thing, doing the best thing as a 15-year-old, making up rules and ways of being as a 15-year-old. And I used that right up until I was in my 40s, kind of thing, which wasn't healthy. It wasn't good at all, right? And I think when I started taking addiction counseling, I remember our main professor, she said, there was 30 some of us, I think, in the program to start, and she said, I will not pass any of you who don't deal with your own shit first, right? Kind of thing. And I thought, I got no shit, kind of thing. And then we started watching a video, and it was like I was watching my life up there, kind of thing. And I was like, holy shit, I do have a lot of shit I got to unpack. And I think that's when I really started to look at trauma, right? And how addiction and violence and abuse and everything, how that is all encompassing, right? And it was crazy. And then I sat down with my kids and I said, man, I fucked up, I did some bad things, I wasn't a good mom. And
you sat down with them and had this discussion with them?
And I told them, I said, I just learned about trauma, and this is what it is, kind of thing. And I think I've been doing everything kind of backwards, kind of thing. And I have 4 kids, and I have 2 kids, my 2 youngest ones that I'm really close with, and my 2 older ones, I love them dearly. But we're kind of estranged at different times, they come and they come back. I tell people that it's because they got the worst of me, because they're older, right? So I think they got the worst of me, and it's hard, I think, for them to heal, from me being a parent, because my mother was neglectful of me, so I didn't know how to be a mother, right? So I knew the things that I wanted to give my kids, and I did do that, but then there was other things I think that I lacked significantly, right, and stuff, and I didn't realize until I had gone until I started taking the training to become an addictions counselor. And then I realized, holy shit, like I got a lot of stuff I need to unpack, kind of stuff. And recognizing that how trauma affects our decisions, later on and stuff, and how we make these decisions. And we keep saying, well, how come we got the same thing happening to me over and over again? And because I'm making the same decisions, right? Based on,
and you're not actually even making the decisions. Your trauma and your subconscious is making these decisions. As you were speaking about your mother, being in an abusive relationship and you witnessing that for however long, and then you ended up getting into the same exact relationship. You were probably young going, I'm never going to have that kind of relationship. And then you don't have the power to choose and you get into the exact same relationship, right? And then, I'm not going to be a mother like that. And then you end up being, maybe not exactly, but some of the same traits as your own mother had, right?
For sure.
And then pushed your daughters or your oldest two away a bit, but then realized, holy shit, I do have shit to deal with. And then the journey begins, right?
For sure. And it's funny because my two oldest kids, their dad, when I met him, I met him and he just came, I was in a bar underage and he came in the back door after being in a fight and had like black eyes from the night before getting into a fight. And I thought he was so attractive, like, duh, like, what the hell? Like, who does that, kind of thing. But I think, and now looking back, right, when I started processing it and everything, I thought, yeah, because in some ways that was familiar. Right, that was like, and I guess too, right, like, oh, he fights, so he'll protect me, kind of thing, right, and like it's decisions like that, right, when you go through them at the time and you don't realize, like you said, right, that you're making those decisions, and then you realize after, wow, what was I thinking to make those kind of decisions, right? So yeah.
So when you were 15 and you left home, where'd you go?
So at first I moved in with my grandma, with my mom, my maternal grandma, and I was staying there with her. And then she had a friend. I was actually going to school and I was almost 16 at the time. I ended up getting a job at the Manitoba Developmental Center. It's in Manitoba and it was run by the government and it was for people who are suffering from mental retardation. And so and we don't call it that, but that was what it was called back then. But, and so I got a job there during the day and then sometimes the evening shift or whatever. So I was trying to go to school, at the same time and then work at the same, because I needed money, right? So, and then I ended up quitting school in grade 9. After grade 9, actually, I went 1 week in grade 10. And then after that, I was like, I can't do school and work full time, right? So I quit school, actually. I went to work there, for a while. So, and then I took courses to become a psych nurse assistant, right? And yeah.
How many years did you stay there?
I think I was there for like, I was there till I was 16, 17, 18, 2.5 years probably. And then I ended up getting in the relationship that I got into, at the bar.
And you were living?
In Manitoba.
Still?
Yeah.
In that little town still?
Yeah.
No
Still
way.
in that little town, yeah.
When did you make your way out of there?
So after I had the first 2 kids.
So 20-ish?
Yeah, I was in my 20, I was 22, 23, something like that.
With the same dude?
No, we, so when I got pregnant, when I found out I was pregnant, I was living in a house with my uncles, and there was a couple of uncles living there and some friends and whatever. And it was just a party house. We were just partying, whatever. And so when I got pregnant, I thought, okay, I can't be here anymore. Like, this relationship isn't working. And because I craved family, I craved love, right? So I thought I'm going to I'm going to make this this baby's going to be like my love, right? Like, and so I thought, okay, I can't be in that relationship. I can't be around, around everybody partying, whatever. So then I decided, okay, I need to get out on my own, whatever and stuff. And so then I was there. And then when my daughter was born, and while I was pregnant, there was like a guy who was a family friend, and he started coming around and was just helping me out and stuff. His dad was like very well known in town for helping people out and stuff like that, and he was really good friends. His dad was really good friends with my grandparents, and so then like the son started coming around and hanging around, and then we ended up getting together after I'd had the second child, and then after I had the second child, and then we ended up getting married, him and I, and then we had two more kids. We had two kids, and he adopted the two oldest ones, and so yeah, and then I was with him for I think 8 years, something like that.
And so with him, you ended up moving to Regina?
Yeah, because his job, he was working a really good job, and so he wanted to move to Regina so he would be closer. And so we moved to Regina, yeah. And so that was in 88. I had my youngest in June, and we moved in August of 88 to Regina.
And he worked out of town?
Yeah, he worked out of town. He was gone for like weeks and weeks at a time, right? And
So hence the beginning of this young mothers group?
yeah.
What even was the catalyst for that? Like, why did you even want to do that?
I think because I was lonely. Like I was so lonely. And I remember, like I had no family. I didn't know anybody that lived in Regina, kind of thing. So, and I was just lonely because my whole days would be, get up, get the kids ready for school. We lived just close to Herkimer School. So I would walk the kids to school and stuff. And I thought, this can't be my life, like, all that there is, kind of thing. And then he would be away for weeks and weeks at a time. So everything I did was with me and the kids, everything, right, and stuff. And even when he would come back from being gone, there was no, and I get maybe, he was busy working or something, and he just wanted to relax, when he came back. But for me, it was, there was no time, no family time, right, kind of thing. So nothing ever changed when he came back. There was no, okay, now dad's going to take over, or we're going to be a family, while he's back. There was none of that, right? So it was always by myself, always doing stuff by myself. And so I got tired of it, and I thought, I need to have something more. And so I actually approached the school, the principal, and just said, like, so do you have any mothers groups, that are happening around? Like, do you know of any place that I could go, kind of thing, for a mothers group? And I told him that I was a stay-at-home mom and my husband worked away a lot. And he said, no, but that sounds like a great idea. He said, like, why don't you do something? And I thought, I'd never done anything like that in my life. And I was like, And then I thought, okay. And yeah, that started it, I guess. Yeah, that was just, and then I did it and I loved it.
No way.
Yeah, it was cool.
So that was the first program you ever built?
First program I ever built. It was called Moz. Mothers Are Special.
Moz.
The Moz group. Now that I think about it, a silly name, but.
How did you get the mothers together?
We actually put a flyer out, kind of thing, and the school sent it home and stuff. And so, and then I put an ad in the paper, I think, like in the Leader Post, and just said, hey, like, we have this group at, for stay-at-home moms and at Herkimer School. And so I had a woman come. She used to live in Lumsden, and she would drive in for the meetings just to come out, kind of thing. So yeah, it was pretty good.
Was it well attended?
Yeah, it was pretty well attended. It kind of dwindled off after a little while and stuff, but but it was pretty good. But here's the thing. So we were running the program, and we would talk, and we were, mothers and everything. And then that was going really well. And the school even said, hey, we have a guest speaker that, they could maybe come in. And we were like, great, really good rapport with the school. And then one night we had this woman who said, hey, after the meeting, there's like line dancing at the bar at the Long Branch Saloon. Do you guys want to go? And we were like, heck yeah. So we went to the bar. So then it got to be a regular occurrence. We would go to the meeting, and then we would go to the bar for a couple hours and then go home. So our meetings we were special. We had a good time together. But yeah, it was fun. But then again, like I said, then we were able to get out, and then you felt free, kind of thing for those hours, right? Kind of thing. So it was good. I think I needed that, kind of thing, right? So
did you learn vulnerability in those mother classes? Or
Oh, for sure. I think, yeah, because I think that's where, I always say that word kinship, right? Kind of thing. That's my favorite word to use. But I think that's where we developed a kinship, right, between us, because there was, we understood each other. We understood the hardships. We also understood, like I said, just because you're a mother doesn't mean you stop being a woman, right? You're still a woman, right? Kind of thing. And you still have needs. And a lot of us started learning too about our parenting styles too, right? And where they came from. And I think that opened the door too, right? Like, well, how was your mother to you and stuff like that, right? And my whole life I've always been an open book, right? Like, so I'm not, I'm not ashamed to where I came from or whatever, right? So it's so we were. I think once I started talking, then everybody else started talking too, and it was really good because then you got to learn too, and then it also helped us, I think, in some ways become better parents too, right? We didn't want to turn out like some of our mothers, kind of thing, right? So, yeah.
amazing. And so shortly after that, you went to college?
No, so I lived in Regina, and then we split up actually in 90, I think, or 91, I think it was, and 90, I think it was 90. And then so then I was by myself with the kids, and then I ended up meeting someone else. I ended up actually going to college because at that time, like I said, I only had a grade 9 education, right? I didn't have nothing. So there was a program, wasn't college, it was a program with SciAst actually, and it was a program for mothers trying to bridge their way back into working or whatever and stuff. So I went to take that program. So they taught you about computers and stuff like that and everything and whatever and stuff and communication, and I can't remember what other courses I took. So I took that course and I thought, okay, I can do this. And I was volunteering part-time at the school where my kids were. So like I said, and it was funny because I was the new person there, they kind of got me to look after like the bad kids, kind of thing. And so, and I got along great with them, right? Like, because I don't know, I just figured I'm I knew them, right? Kind of thing. So, so then I just kind of started doing that. And then that's when I thought, oh, I should be a teacher assistant. So then I started taking, courses for that and stuff like that and working part-time and doing that and, kind of thing. And then I ended up meeting my second husband in Regina. And then we got together in 92. And in 96, I think it was, we moved to Swift Current. And we got married in 97, and we were together for 23 years.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
So you go to college and you start learning how to be a nurse's assistant?
No, I didn't go to college for that. When you worked at in the Manitoba Developmental Center, they had courses there you could take, like while you were working, like so you could, like, they gave you those on site, like, yeah.
So finally, you make it to the prison on a 90-day practicum, and you walk in there. So, from my experience, I work in Drumheller pen right now, and I started about a year and a half ago, not quite, a year and 4 or 5 months ago. And I remember the very first day I walked into the penitentiary was like a fucking dream. It was like, I can't believe I'm walking into a federal penitentiary and I'm allowed to go pretty much anywhere I want. And like, it was really surreal to me. And then to see, because I had only seen it on TV, and then to see, the inmates in the breezeway and just everything was like, it was a mind blower. What was it like for you the first time? Do you remember?
I think the same way. I think like I remember when we went for the tour before I did the practicum, and there was this robust guy who was leading the tour or whatever for me and two other participants that were considering the practicum at the pen, and we went into the Corcan area, right, where they make like mattresses and stuff like that, and there were these guys and they were hooting and hollering, because one of the other ladies she was quite endowed. And they were just like hooting and hollering. And she was like, oh my God, I'm so disgusted. And the other lady was like, oh, okay, this is not. And I was just like, oh, it's just like any biker bar you go into, like, kind of thing, whatever. And I was like, oh, whatever, like, and stuff. And, but I was like, I had a different mindset when I first started because I believe that, okay, you do the crime, you do the time, right? Like you don't deserve anything, kind of thing. Like you're a bad person, kind of. And then when I started working there, I remember I was used to, because I worked at the Manitoba Development Center, and it was cement, right? All over and stuff like that. So for me, that kind of stuff didn't bother me, and the doors locked and everything at the other place. So, and I was young, right, when I went there. So it was like, oh, whatever, But I remember thinking like, okay, I'm going to go there and do this, do this 90 days, and I'm going to get a really good reference, kind of thing, whatever and stuff. And hopefully maybe they'll like me and then they'll keep me, kind of thing, whatever. And when I first walked in there, I just remember the feeling of when the doors close behind you, like when you enter the first gate and those doors shut and you can hear that noise, that click. And I just thought, what would it be like for me if I had to stay here, right? And then that kind of overtook me, and I was like, wow, this is the big house, like, kind of thing. And I was like, wow. And so I vowed right then and there that I would treat these guys like I would want my son to be treated if he ever went through those gates. Right? So anybody that I ever came in contact, I thought, I'm going to treat them like I would treat my son, right? No matter what, right?
And you had that shift in that moment?
In that moment. I think it was because that clanging of the door, right? That locking of the door. And I just thought it sounded so final, like, and it bothered me, like, and I don't know. I think in that moment I just thought, okay, I'm going to do this. And I think for myself too, okay, Brenda, here's how you're going to approach this, like kind of thing. You're just going to treat everybody like you would your own son, like how you would want somebody to treat your son. And that's how I did it my whole career. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So, and then that was the beginning of your career working in penitentiaries.
Yeah.
Did you primarily work at Drum, or did you bounce around at all?
So I worked at Drum, and then I worked in the community in Edmonton for 4 years.
At the Max?
No, in the community.
Okay,
right?
okay.
Yeah, in the community. So, and I also did a little stint. I did another practicum at Okemawachi Healing Lodge in Maple Creek. So I was out there working with the women. But I found the women, honestly, I was more afraid working with the women than I was with the men. Kind of weird, hey? But it wasn't really, I guess not afraid. Afraid is the wrong word. I would say I was more exhausted working with the women. And I think the reason why is because to sit down and talk to another woman who's been abused, and sexually exploited or whatever, kind of thing, and to listen to her stories and stuff was so heavy for me. I think because I'm a woman, right? So I think for me it was just like the stories were just too much to hold. And I was having a hard time because I was staying at a house at my first husband's, his friend's house. And they were very, I felt like unwelcome. Like, I felt like an unwanted house guest kind of thing, even though they wanted me to stay there, like to, pay them rent, whatever. But I just felt like, I don't know, I just felt like it wasn't, and I think because they would talk sometimes negatively about Indigenous people and being a half-breed, like whatever, like they call me, right? Like, so it wasn't sitting right with me, right? So, so then to go from listening to stories all day about, abuse and, stuff like that from the women and hearing their stories, and then going home and being in a room isolated and feeling not wanted there, I think it was just too much for me. And I just felt, and I was living in Medicine Hat at the time, and I would go home on the weekends, and I developed this obsession with having blockers on my windowsills, and all the curtains had to be closed, and the closet doors had to be open. I had to in the bathroom, bathroom curtain had to be open. And if somebody accidentally left the curtain closed in the bathroom, I would freak out because I would be scared somebody would be behind there, right? Because at some point, some woman had told me about being attacked or something, kind of thing. And so I was just fearful living in my own house, right? And so that happened for a while. And I thought, okay, this is ridiculous. Like, couldn't sleep, I had to be all curled up in a ball because one woman had told me that she was sleeping and her ex came in the house, broke in the house and grabbed her by the legs and pulled her off the bed and started beating her. So that was in my head, right? I can't sleep with my legs out. Everything. It was like I picked up everything, like, all of this stuff. And I realized that I went and talked to my professor actually and said, like, what, like, why am I feeling like this? And she said, well, you're having vicarious trauma, right? And I was like, what is that? Like, kind of thing. And then, started exploring vicarious trauma and realizing that because I had been traumatized myself, right, in some of the ways that the women were telling me, was that I was experiencing it all over again. Every time they would tell me a story, I would just like, whoo, it would just be sucked right into me and I'd be like living it over again. And I couldn't do it. I just could not. As much as I loved working with women, I just could not do that, right? Kind of thing. So I think working with the men was easier for me, like, because then I could take their stories, but I could relate to a lot of stuff, but not in a, in a really core way, right? Like I could still listen and empathize and be there with them, but it didn't affect me as much emotionally and mentally as the women did, right? So I also worked at Buffalo Sage. I worked for Native Counseling Services for a while.
No way. My dad did too.
Yeah. I worked there for a bit. I worked at Buffalo Sage and did some supervision over at Stan Daniel. So, worked there for a bit. Yeah.
Was there a point in your journey? So I'll give you kind of like my lived experience. So I'm half-breed. I'm half Indigenous, half white, but I took the full look of Indigenous side. But I grew up in a white world, Catholic school. My mom's white. My dad's full-blood Cree. My dad wasn't around. My mom was the one that primarily raised me, although she didn't get me and my brother back till she was, we were in grade 3. He was in grade 2. So she didn't have us for a few years for whatever reason. So we were growing up with my grandmother. First with my dad until my dad was too much of an alcoholic. Then he had to give us to my grandma. But then I grew up in the city of Calgary in Ogden and all white. And I would see and hear all these things about Indians. It was Indians back then. And I developed a huge prejudice against Indians, including myself. And I remember when I was really, really young too, I remember trying to like rub the brown off my skin when I was like really little. Excuse me. And then I didn't want to be Indian. I didn't want to know Indians. I didn't want to talk to any Indians. But as I grew up, walking in life, I would run into the odd other Indigenous person and they'd want to talk to me. And I wouldn't fucking talk to them. And I would ignore them. And I fucking, it was crazy, man. I didn't know an Indigenous person in my life till I was 43 years old. Right? And that's not even 10 years ago. Right? 9 years ago, I knew an Indigenous person. But kind of where I'm going with this is earlier when I was in the depths of my addiction and I was working for ATCO up on a reserve called Peerless Trout First Nation, I was building a fire hall and ATCO had hired me because I looked Indian. And I had a good background because I learned in the white world how to be a civil construction coordinator, project manager, and I could build things really well. And I remember when I was in the interview for the job and the 2 white guys were interviewing me, and I'd built my business and then I lost it through my addiction, but I built a successful construction company. But then once I burned that down, I'm in this office and these 2 guys are interviewing me and they're going through the contract and it's all written in like policies and, all these terms. And it's like civil construction this and civil that and civil this. I'm like, if you mean, can I fucking build shit and pack dirt and make shit happen? Yes. And they're like, okay.
Layman's term.
Yeah. I'm like, I can do all the shit you guys put in fancy writing. And if you want me to do it, I'll do it. So they did hire me. And then I went up to Peerless Trout. But I'm the whitest Indian you ever met. And I start treating the band construction crew who had to work for me and all the band laborers who had to work for me, I was just a slave driver. And I did it in a way that I learned. And then there was this one native guy, he came up to me and he said, dude, you're going to get killed. He's like, you cannot do what you're doing with these people. I'm going to tell you some things. 7 hours later, after he tells me all these things, I'm just like, holy shit, I'm going to get killed. And then I kind of did a big gulp, called my dad, and I'm like, Dad, this is what this guy told me. He's like, son, I know I meant to tell you, but you left too quick. Like, you got to mellow it out up there. And anyway, so a long story short, I went to a different job, cut my teeth on trying to learn, and then I started Googling, like, our First Nations people's path. I didn't know anything. I started looking at, like, the genocide, you know, hundreds of years ago. And the mass killings of Indian people across North America. I read about the residential schools and the blankets and all these different things and how we got to where we were. And I was just like, holy shit, there's a reason why we are all like this. And then I worked with this one dude. His name was Nathan. He was my helper. He had a very thick native accent. He spoke mostly Cree. But he spoke English too, but it was very thick, Indigenous accent. And I remember the one day when I'd always look at him, I'd be like, dude, when are you going to get your shit together, you know? Meanwhile, in the background, I'm smoking crack like a motherfucker. I just lost my house and all these things, right? And here I am, superior to this guy, fucking judging him why he can't get his shit together. Lives in a house with his washer and dryer on his front porch, and he gets around the reserve on a bike and doesn't have a license, and he drinks from time to time, and I'm judging him. And I'm like, but I loved him. He grew on me. And I'm like, in 6 months, where are you going to be? In a year, where are you going to be? And then he just sat me down. We're in my truck, I remember, and he said, bro, I don't think about all those things. I just know that I love my kids, and I'm going to help. I'm going to go pick strawberries with my daughter on Saturday, and I'm going to go looking for eggs in the swamp on Sunday. Then we'll take them to my cookums, and she makes this food. And in that moment, I was like, who the fuck has a better life? This guy has, like, real values and knows things. And my whole thing switched. And then from that time on, I didn't get sober yet. And I didn't realize I didn't want to be Indian yet. That came in recovery. But there was some shifts that happened where I really started, like, feeling for my people. And I started following the culture and going to powwows and going to ceremonies. And, like, I knew that I needed to find that part of me. And I knew I wanted to help our people. I love to help all people. I hate separating it and saying our people. But in a way, it's true. Was there a shift in your journey through, maybe it was the penitentiary, maybe it was before that, because you got Native blood in you too, right? And you've dedicated a lot of your life. And that's the segment of the series, is people that dedicate their life to helping Indigenous people is really what this segment is about, this series. And you're the last one on the series, and I thank you for being here. Was there any shifts or definite moments where you realized, holy shit, I got to help Native people? Or where compassion built more or something?
I think it kind of started, like I said before, like when I first started volunteering at school. And then, you know, because I would get like the bad kids or the kids that nobody wanted to work with, right? And they were usually the Native kids, right? You know, kind of thing. And I was like, why is this happening? Like, why am I getting all these kids, right? Like, you know, and, oh, you take this one. Oh, Brenda's new. Give him those kids, you know. I remember I had one kid in high school too, and I worked with, and that's kind of how I ended up in that program, was because I was new at the high school level, and they gave me all the bad kids, the kids that wouldn't do their homework or wouldn't show up for school, or, you know, whatever, or swore at the teacher or whatever, right? And there was this one kid, and his name was Frank, and he was an Indigenous guy, and he wouldn't do anything. He just sat there with his arms, you know, like this, and I don't got to do anything. And I said, you're right. You don't have to do anything, you know, kind of thing. And I just started talking to him and listening to him. And then it got to I thought, oh, I almost got him, you know, kind of thing. And then the next time he came, and we were in these desks, you know, and he was sitting at a desk, and I sat on the desk facing him with my feet in the seat of the desk, facing him. And I had my hands like this, and he was like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm just going to sit here with you." I said, "I'm just going to sit here with you, kind of thing." And he said, "Why? Are you allowed to do that?" Kind of thing. And I said, "I don't care," kind of thing. And I think that little comment was like, "Oh, okay, maybe she's not so bad," kind of thing, whatever. But I just remember feeling too. And then he started talking to me too about his life and about stuff. And well, just because I'm Native, that's why people don't like me, kind of thing, whatever. I said, "Well, I like you," kind of thing. But I got to thinking too, because when I was growing up in Porks Prairie, Manitoba, my dad's side of the family, that's the Native side of the family, they were very well known in the community as being drunk, kind of thing, whatever, like, using whatever and stuff back in the day. And so I was ashamed of that, right? Like that was my uncle, and people, and I look white, right? My cousins don't, they don't look the same as I do. And so for me, I think that was always like, whew, I don't look like them, kind of thing. So when they'd say, "Well, what's your last name?" And I'd say, "Oh, my last name's Berard." "Oh, you're a Berard," they'd say, like, kind of thing. And I'd be like, so then after a while I started saying, "No, my name is DeGagne, like my mom's maiden name," right? And aren't you a Berard? I'd be like, "No, I'm not a Berard," like, kind of thing, eh? But that too, right? Like, not knowing the circumstances, anything about my grandparents' lives, kind of thing, and whatever, and being disconnected from my father, and not having that connection, kind of thing. And it wasn't until my early teens, like till we got back from Montreal, that I started to kind of reach out to that side of the family and stuff, kind of thing, and make those connections, right? And not feel that sense of shame anymore, kind of thing. And I think my grandma too, my grandma on that side, she was so loving and kind and caring. And really, truth be told, that side of the family never hurt me, never hurt me. The other side of the family did, kind of thing, right? And so I felt safe there on that side of the family. And I think, and I think I got to see them in a different light too once the story started to unravel and stuff like that. And and getting to know my grandma, and how could I be ashamed coming from someone like her? Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think, and when I started working in the pen, I started to see that too. Like, the Indigenous guys got laughed at by the guards, kind of thing. When we'd have a sweat ceremony, and they'd be like, "Oh, you guys going to sweat your balls off?" Like, kind of stuff like that. Like, just rude comments. Not every one of them, but the occasional one, kind of thing. And just, I think for a lot of people anyway, whether you're Indigenous or not, when you go into prison, you get demonized, right? There was murderers in there was drug dealers, and there was people in there for tax evasion, kind of thing. And they're all lumped together, kind of thing, whatever, right? And like, and guys that make one mistake in their life and they're in prison, right? Because I always say every one of us are one decision away from a totally different life, right? And so I think for me, it was just like, I don't know, I started to see the lack of equality, and stuff and everything. And I think the attitude that, we got the budget for this, but you know what, let's cheapen that down, kind of thing, because it's for the Indigenous people or whatever, kind of thing. And I just thought, like, this is just ridiculous, like, how can you treat people like that? Like, and I think it's just, and I think too, from my past and growing up too, like, just like wanting to, that's my people. Like, I was talking to my friend on the way here today, that's the thing, is that those are my people, right? They're people that have had similar experiences, similar traumas, whatever, growing up in a house, and, people are fighting and, drinking and whatever, and stuff's going on, kind of thing. And you have similar backgrounds, right? And I think yeah. And I think that's the thing, is that I think sometimes people are just like, just, it's good enough, but it's not good enough, kind of thing, whether it's services or whatever it is, right? It's just like, why do they get second class stuff, kind of thing, right? And yeah, and I think especially being at the pen too, knowing that the different undertones and the covert racism too, right, that existed. And I'm a champion of the underdog, right? So, I think that's kind of, and I think it just kind of happened right along the way, right? Just, yeah.
Beautiful. We'll get back to the podcast in a second. The opinions expressed on this podcast are solely of the guest sharing or myself. We have no affiliation with any 12-step or recovery program. And if you do like our work, please consider visiting BILLWARDLIFE and supporting what we do. Now back to the podcast. And one thing that it kind of came out, so 6 years sober for me, this is when it actually came out. I realized I spent my whole life running away from being Indian. And I realized I never really hated Indians or Indigenous people. I hated myself is really the bottom line. But if you would have asked me in those years of the way that I was, I never would have known that, right? Yeah. Because I was layered with the facade of like my own pride and ego and who I thought I was and what you thought I was. And there's so many layers to this like life that we live, and trying to uncover, discover, and recover who we truly are is kind of, that's why I named the podcast Uncover, Discover, Recover. Because it's like uncovering and discovering and recovering who you are, who you're meant to be. And that takes fucking time. It takes layers. It takes like a lot of pain and willingness, right, to look there. And for me, it was like, how many other Indigenous people feel like I did? And through the work that I've done with Indigenous people, I'll tell you a lot, right? And so that's kind of how I came to terms with that. And as we look at your career in the prison, and I know before I met you, I heard about you, and I heard nothing but good things.
Oh, I was just going to say it's all lies.
Right? Like some of these guys that do know you that I've met, they fucking love you, right? So you had a profound impact. And some of the stories I've heard is like that cultural center in the Drum would be full of 100 guys or more doing Wellbriety with you. And like, what was it? Like, what was it about your delivery, if you can speak to that? Or like, it's hard to get 100 people listening to one person. And I do these studies all the time, and like, sometimes I get 100 people, but I've been doing this for years, and I'm not always getting 100 people, right? And there's a special gift to be able to have a lot of people come to these things, and especially like in prison. Like, how did you do it?
Well, first let me say that the love that they felt for me was mutual. I've nothing but love and respect for those guys. And like I said, when I first entered, I was like, I had the mindset that everybody, you did the time, you do the crime, you do the time, and they don't deserve, whatever and stuff. And as I got to meet people, I seen their hearts. Right, and I totally changed my view of incarcerated individuals, because, and it's not 100% obviously, right? There are some dark individuals in prison that deserve to be there, and thank goodness that they're not in in society. But for the majority of it, the majority of people that I met they had a soul, like they were, circumstances had got them there, kind of thing, whether it was addiction or trauma or whatever, or a combination, right, and stuff like that. And so, and I think that was the thing. And while I was on my practicum, I was there, to do my practicum. But I had read Wellbriety book, and that's how I had kind of, healed myself, was through the Red Road to Wellbriety, and so. It came up with the guy that was supervising me, and he's like, they're at Pesach Casteo, they're doing this training for this medicine wheel 12-step Wellbriety thing. And I was like, what? Like this? And I was like, can I go? I'll pay, I'll pay myself. And he's like, well, I'll just sign you up. And so he signed me up basically as like one of the staff to go to this training. And all I had to do was come up with my own accommodations. And so I did that. And I went for the training for free. And so part of my whole thing was, I just prayed, and I said to Creator, before I got the okay, I just prayed to Creator and said, Creator, if you give me this opportunity, I will give it back. I will give it back, right? Kind of thing. And I got the opportunity. And I got to go for free. The place that I ended up staying at was friends of my ex-husband's. And so it was like, it worked out, kind of thing, beautifully. I went for the training. Then when I started in drum, I was doing 90 days drug strategy, and I was like, okay, so nobody's asked me to report anything, kind of thing about my 90 days before I switched over to being a program officer. And so I gave a report to the warden and said, these are the guys that I've done harm reduction with. These are the guys that I've done AA with. These are the guys I've done Wellbriety with. These are the guys I've done one-on-one. And the warden was like, you did all this in 90 days? And I was like, yeah, I was a go-getter, kind of thing. I said, my recommendation is that the guys need more. They need more. For what you're doing is you're catching people, you're putting them on 90-day drug strategy, and you're taking away their visits and you're isolating them, and that's not healthy. And I never believed in that strategy, kind of thing. And so when I got hired on as a program facilitator, I had asked, I said, hey, is it possible for me to do the Wellbriety program? And they're like, well, what is that? And I said, well, it's a 12-step program. It's Indigenous, led and stuff. And I said, it's a little different, kind of thing. And I said, would I be able to do that? Well, we don't have the funding for that. I said, well, it won't cost you anything. I don't want to get paid for it. I'll do volunteer, it'll be my volunteer time. And I said, I've already talked to the elders. The elders are willing to do it, with me and stuff like that. And the warden, I remember the warden at the time said, nobody's going to come. You're interfering in their rec time, because I wanted to go 6 to 8 p.m., right? And they're like, you're doing it in their rec time. They're not going to want to come. And I said, well, can I just try? Kind of thing. And they're like, okay. And so they're like, well, I guess if you want to, kind of thing. Started out, our very first meeting, we had 12 guys show up. That was it, right? Kind of thing. And then the next meeting, we had like 20 some guys. And the next meeting, 30. And then it just kind of built and built. And we ended up, when I left Drumheller, we were up to 150 guys coming on a Tuesday night.
Holy shit.
And here's the thing: we had one time we had a lady from National come in, and she was like, "Yes, I heard about this Wellbriety program, and would you mind if I sat in? I know it's short notice." I said, "No, it's fine. No worries. You can come. Are you sure the guys will be okay?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. Come on in." So she came in, and then she kind of sat off to the side, and stuff with the other elder that was there. And so me and Elder Elsie Winnipeg would. So this is how we do it. The Cultural Center, we'd stand at the doors and we'd welcome everybody that came in, shake their hand. Some guys would hug us, kind of thing. And we'd say, hey, Charlie, whatever. Hey, Billy, Bob, whatever, kind of thing. And how's it going? And how's your sister doing? Kind of thing. And once we got to know them, kind of thing. And so we'd welcome them all. They'd come in, they'd grab a seat, they'd sit down. We had drummers, that would volunteer. I put a call out looking for drummers, and I got some guys that were willing to come and drum. And so we had the drummers in the middle, and then we had a circle around the drummers. And then I wanted a podium, kind of thing with a microphone. So the guys had to get up and talk. And the guys were like, well, why do we got to get up and talk? And I said, well, because I think it's more authentic if you get up and express in front of everybody, kind of thing. And the first step is the hardest, right? Kind of thing. And so if you have to get up and move across, then what you have to say means something, kind of thing, because you had to pull yourself up out of the chair. And they were like, oh, that's stupid. but a lot of guys did it, and it got to be. But we got to the point after where we had 3 circles around the drum, like 150 guys, kind of thing. And it was all volunteer. Myself and Elder, I started out myself and Elder Elsie Winnipeg and Elder Lawrence Mystical Cat. And then when he transferred to Saskpen, Elder Ken Cardinal came in and sat with us. And so, we would meet and we would have the smudge, and we would smudge the drummers, and then the drummers would play after this, during the smudge, and so we smudged the whole group. And then once they ended up with, at the end of it, then they would pass the feather to the elder, and the elder would say a prayer. And then and I did the first few meetings. I led the meetings, but I told them that this wasn't mine. It was theirs, right? It was their program. And I explained to them, I'm not writing any reports. I'm not going to go and say this is what was said or this, kind of thing. I said, this is your program, kind of thing. And I said, and there's books here. You can do the books. I said, but what I wanted to do, what I set out to do in the very beginning was just to draw them in, right? Just to have them know that this was a safe place and that they could come and just talk about addiction and the impacts. And so once they started coming and once they started, like I said, getting up to the podium, once they realized I got to get up there and talk. And we had some guys that would sit through 3 rounds of the 12-step program, eh? And they would sit there and not say anything. And then all at once, one day, out of the blue, they would get up, walk across, go to the podium, and say the most profound things. It was just incredible. We used to say all the time that it was the most special evening for us too, right? Like how we were impacting them, they were impacting us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And after a while, we had some staff members that came to help us, just came to be a part to help supervise and stuff. And it's funny because sometimes they got flack, like they got, why are you going there? What's it to you? Like, why are you going there? Are you, kind of thing. And which I thought was so stupid, right? Like, kind of thing, because we're just people who are wanting to do good things, right? And so, yeah, we just, it wasn't so much about me. I think it was just about the fact that it was theirs and that we opened our hearts and we worked with love. There was no ego. We always worked with love. Elder Elsie would talk about her experience. I talked about my experience. I was open and honest. Elsie was open and honest. And the guys got up for the first time, I believe, ever in a Canadian prison. We had guys get up and talk about sexual abuse in front of other inmates. You don't get vulnerable. You're not supposed to get vulnerable in prison, but they would. And one guy got up and talked about his experiences, and people sat there with their heads, the guys sat there with their heads hung down, and they would just be nodding their heads, kind of thing. And then another guy would get up and he'd say, I feel you because I was the same way, and this is my experience. And he would talk about his experience, and we were just like, holy crap, this cannot be happening. But I think because we did it with love and because we used the philosophy of kinship, right? Like, that we were one, we were together. And I shared that with them and I said, we believe in kinship here. Like, we're going to start that we're going to start the program saying that we believe in kinship and that my experiences are no different than your experiences. They might be different, but there's a common theme that goes right through them. And that we're all human beings, right? We've all been hurt. We've all been through trauma. We've all been through addiction. We've all done hurt to other people. And so why can't we all just be together and just love each other through this, right? And that's how we were. That's what we did. And I think the experience was so profound because I would designate guys to lead the program, right? And I would say to them, okay, if you're going to lead the program, you take this book, you take this workbook, and you go through the steps, right? You have to, so I want you to come next week, and I want you to talk about the first step and what it means to you. Talk about the second step, what does it mean to you, right? And so they would have to get up, and that's how they would start the meeting. Today's, we're talking about, the first step, kind of thing, and this is what it means to me. This is when I took the first step, and some guys would say, right now is my first step, kind of thing. And they would be, and sometimes guys would come to me and say, I would really like to lead it. And sometimes I would approach somebody and say, hey, remember there was one guy, Reggie, and he was very quiet, very shy. And I said, Reggie, I would really like you to lead the program next go round after these 12 steps, because we would have we would have coffee all the time, provided by the Brotherhood. They would pay for the coffee, and then we would have a feast, and we would have I used my own money to make the certificates for them, say they had completed the 12 steps if they came, regularly. And some guys would just keep coming, right? Just keep coming over and over and stuff. And a lot of guys did, actually. And And so the feasts were provided by me and the elders. Like, we would get permission to, bring in the food and stuff for our feasts. And so we would and the guys would volunteer to cook and every meeting they would set out the chairs, and every meeting after the meeting, the guys would all put away their own chairs. Like, it was very respectful, And I think having the smudge and having the elders and the drummers there, I think that kind of, and I think, like I said, having non-judgmental, having leading with love, I think, right, I think that was the reason why they kept coming back, right? And the reason why they shared so much. We never, in the 4.5 years that I did that program, we never had an incident at all. And we had upwards of 150 guys, come, and we never, ever had an incident. I remember one time we had a guy, he was with Red Alert, and he came in one day sauntering down the stairs, and, he's got a red hat on, red tracksuit, red shoes, kind of thing. And I took him aside, and I just kind of quietly just said to him, I said, I'm going to let you stay today. I said, but can you, if I send you a pass, will you come and see me tomorrow? And he's like, yeah, okay, whatever, like, kind of thing. I sent him a pass. He came. And the next day, and I asked him, I said, and he was a fantastic drummer, like a fantastic guy, and rest his soul. He's no longer with us, but I talked to him, and I said, can I ask you a question? He said, yeah. I said, why do you come to Wellbriety? He said, I don't know. I like it. I said, what do you like about it? He said, I like the fact that people are talking, and sometimes, like, I understand, I connect with what they're saying. I said, oh, I like to drum, he said. I said, well, you're a great drummer. I said, I love having you in the drum group. And I said, or I'd love to have you in the drum group. And then I said, would you like to drum? And he's like, yeah. I said, for sure. And I said, okay. And I said, but when you come, I said, do you come as a member of the gang? Well, I am. Like, and I said, yeah, but are you coming to represent them? Like, did they send you to say, go check it out? Like, go case the place out? And he's like, no. And I said, well, so you're coming as yourself? And he's like, yeah. And I said, so can you do me a favor? I said, when you come as yourself. Like, and I said, I get it. You're in a gang. And I said, so how about instead of coming all decked out in red and making a spectacle of yourself, I said, we just respect everybody's healing and your own. And I said, and we tone it down a little bit. How about if I'll say you come with a red hat or red shoes or something, if you got to do that. He looked at me, and I said, it's just to protect your healing and other people's healings around. Because when you come with that red color, you're making a statement. I'm here to represent, right? And I said, so how about you come here representing yourself, not them, right? And he looked at me, and he's like, I said, you can still come, kind of thing, but just tone it down. And he's like, all right. And then he said, thanks. And I said, for what? He said, for being respectful. I said, no worries, bud. Came the next time, he wasn't even wearing red at all. And he came and sat down, and he was one of my best drummers in the program. Him and Les and Ian, there was a few of them that different, Russell, there was a few of them that were such good, such good drummers and stuff, right, that would come and volunteer their time just to come and drum for us, right, and stuff. And I think for everybody that went there, they got something out of it, Elder Elsie used to say that for those 2 hours, it wasn't like we were in jail, right?
Right.
We were just there being together, loving and laughing, because there were some times when somebody would get up and say something funny and we'd all laugh, kind of thing. And I remember one time a guy got up and he started talking about a program officer. And one of the guys said, hey, this isn't the place. And he was like, well, I understand this. And he's like, this isn't the place, he said. And then he just kind of, so they governed themselves, right, and stuff. But yeah, I will always say till the day I die, that was the best experience of my life. I think those 4.5 years doing Wellbriety in the pen was by far the highlight of my career.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And no doubt it was love-based, right? Like, it had to be. And, like, you just emanate that shit, right? So I'm sure that it's very contagious, and that's the only way 150 guys will come, right? And, like, I do my study groups, and I do one tomorrow night actually, and we're getting in total, I don't know, well over 100, maybe we're pushing 150, including online and in person. And that's through like no real advertising, right? That's just word's gotten out now that I'm doing these things, and a lot of my work is why we connect in so many ways is because we operate the same, right? And we have a lot of the same philosophies, and all my work is done through love. And maybe my approach sometimes is a little different, a little hard ass, but people need to hear the real truth too, right? And so I believe why I've become successful in the stuff that I do is because of exactly why you were so successful in that Wellbriety group. And we're streaming, like I told you, we're streaming live into the penitentiary, right?
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
And not due to just my own action, mostly due to somebody else who works there's action, who believes in what I do and believes in, the men you talked about seeing their soul, and like all the work that I do with those guys, I see so past what they've done. And I've heard them confide in me things that they could never confide in other people, right? Because I built that trust, and they feel that love, and they feel that authenticity and that trust, and they want to heal, so they're willing to let me in on those things. And so this one woman, she's gotten us in there to stream, and I think she said there was like 9 or 10 in the first group, and then there was 15 or something in the second group, and then I was just working there, and I met with all the guys. They wanted to meet me in a circle, and so we met all together, and we all talked. I did a sharing circle with them, and dude, you could have heard a fucking pin drop in that place, right? As I'm talking about like these philosophies that are practically applied in our lives that will change us as human beings. And tomorrow we'll see, maybe there's 20, maybe there's 30. And I'm hoping that it just keeps growing. And another thing that's happened is I got a box of 20 books coming for free for them because my friend printed off the pages on a printer and then gave them like little notebooks with these pages in it, which is great. But I've always found that if you can use the book will have your answer that you need. And it's not reliant on me as the person facilitating. It's your reliance with maybe the book that takes you to Creator, and Creator has your answers, right? That's kind of the deal, eh? I just want to switch gears a little bit. And thanks for sharing all of the things you've shared, and, learning about your young journey as a kid and going through some of that stuff. I'd like to learn more about you and some of those things I had no idea, right? Because you're a person that I see, and then my brain just judges you as, oh, she's just fucking perfect. And probably never had a bad experience in her life. And just really kind and loving. But no, you got there on a path, right? And now that we're on a path together, I'm just going to kind of go back to how we met. I know you were kind of scoped out by a treatment center to head up a treatment center and build this big thing that somebody had a vision of. And you were kind of like, yes, this feels right. And so you kind of made the move. And somebody that I know knows you and said I might be a good fit. And so we got in touch, and it's like, okay, let's have dinner. And I'm like, fuck, you're in Edmonton? I made that whole drive to just basically have a coffee with you, right? Not really knowing anything about you or this
You had soup that day.
Did I?
Yeah, you ate lunch. Remember, we had lunch together. Yeah.
But just like the whole, right from the start where our eyes met, it was just like, there was just a connection. And then we sat down, and I got to always be a little like, I wouldn't say I got to be worried, and I don't worry about it, but I swear a lot, and I'm kind of rough around the edges. And meeting somebody that I don't know that's kind of heading up a big thing like this, and sometimes I'm like, okay, Creator, keep me in check, try to help me, watch these things that might, whatever. But I didn't have to do that at all. I was just myself, and it just went really good. And then we just stayed in touch. And you've since left that position and kind of moved on, right? And I don't really know where I want to go with that, but
where am I going now, or what am I doing? How we're we're doing things together.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about
Oh.
too much how you left or why you left. And, these are personal reasons that we both know it aligns with our integrity.
Mm-hmm.
And you just felt like it was time to go. And you didn't know really what you were going to do when you left, right?
No.
But everything's worked itself out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I would say, yeah. I would say for sure, yeah. Mm-hmm.
When did you hear about the program I was building? And this is the first time any of my listeners have heard this, so this is kind of coming out right now. How did you hear about what I was doing? Did I tell you?
I can't remember. I think you did. I think you told me about something, and we were just kind of shooting it. And I said, "Oh, that sounds really interesting, whatever." And then you said, "Yeah, I'd like you to take a look at some stuff that we're doing or whatever." And I said, "Okay." And then we just kind of went from there. And yeah, and I was just finishing up something I was doing for an organization called Second Shot Support Services, which deals with gang intervention. It's coming into fruition pretty soon, and so I said, yeah, let me take a look. I have some time, kind of thing, whatever. And so we just kind of went from there, and it's kind of like, yeah. And I think the thing is that, like I said before, I always make, crazy decisions, whatever and stuff. But I think like when I do, like I said before, when I do make decisions, I use my heart and I use, kind of thing. And is this something I want to be a part of, right, and stuff? And it also affects whether I stay or go or whatever, obviously, from walking away from the other one. But, yeah, if it's something I'm passionate about, something that I believe in, something that I believe is doing the right thing, then for sure I want to be on board, right? And it goes back to helping people, right? It goes all the way back to that, right? In what capacity can I help people? And if that means helping somebody else help people, that's a good thing too, right? Kind of thing. Like, and I believed in your project. Like I think it's great. I think it's going to be really good. I think you're going to be helping a lot of people, kind of thing. And so, I'm more than happy to be a part of it. I think it's great.
Yeah, and you mentioned today you're going to put me on your LinkedIn as who you're contracting for.
Yeah, I'm going to put it on my LinkedIn. Yeah, it's going to go public after today.
Fuck yeah. So anybody look up Brenda Muddle on fucking LinkedIn. Follow her. Spread the word. She's taken a lead in this program that I'm building to help Indigenous men come out of prison and reintegrate into society. And we've been working on this for probably about 4 solid months now. And Brenda is doing the critical review, and through our conversations, she's expressed interest. And I've always wanted her to be part of it. And I kept throwing the seeds, but I had no expectations. But we've kind of commenced a bit of a deal where we'll work forward. And she said she says, I'm going to put you as who I'm working for on LinkedIn. I'm like, fuck yeah, please do. So find her. So we're kind of we're about an hour and 10 minutes into our talk, and fuck, we could probably talk for a long, long time. What's your philosophy of life? I know what it is, and I know how you get here. And like, why I'm asking this is because, you leave the treatment center opportunity, you kind of float around and use your intuition to kind of guide you, and you put your best foot forward in helping whoever it is that needs help. And kind of, I reached out and said, maybe you could look at this for me. And you're like, yeah, maybe I can. And eventually it all happened. And then you decide, well, I'm going to go back to drum for a bit. And now you're just hanging out in drum for no real reason other than to hang out, and you got friends there. And right. And then it's like, well, I was thinking of going up to Yukon and seeing my grandkids and my daughter, but I'm not sure. And now you're going on Friday, and you just kind of like a gypsy.
Willy-nilly in life.
Right? What's your philosophy?
I think my philosophy is, I think because I look at it this way. I know to people this sounds like, whoa, this woman doesn't have her shit together. But the truth is that at this stage of my life, right, I'm not tied to anything, right? I'm not tied to a place. My children are all grown adults, right? They have their own lives and whatever and stuff. And so for me, it's like, in many ways, I guess I'm kind of an opportunist, right? Kind of thing. But again, like I said, it goes back to that heart feeling, right? That kinship philosophy. That, I guess that's my philosophy, right? Is what stirs my soul, what brings me kinship, right? I like to feel like I belong somewhere, and I like to feel like what I'm doing is going to have an end result eventually, right? Kind of thing. And so for me, it's like, what are the opportunities? I moved to a different place for the other job, and I was there, and I had some really good friends that lived there too with me, and not with me, but in the same area, and so for me, but still, it wasn't like my personal family, right? And my youngest daughter said, Mom, like, I would really like you to come out and, and be with us. And of course, can't, you don't have to twist my rubber arm. Like, I would love to be with my grandchildren, right? And my two youngest grandchildren are out there. So for me, it's just a matter of, and where I'm working too doesn't really matter, right? And I'm not saying like I can go there and I'll never come back. You know what I mean? Like, I'm kind of, like I said, on a wing, kind of on a whim, I guess, whatever. Like, if as we progress through this, I might be moving to Calgary next year, So it's just, I think it's just wherever my heart takes me, right? Like wherever I'm meant to go. And I do a lot of praying, I ask Creator whenever I'm unsure about stuff. I just ask Creator, let me know like where I'm supposed to be, because, and this may sound, I don't know, crazy to some people, but I truly believe that Creator guides my life, right? And that Creator presents opportunities to me, and I can either pick them up or I can walk away from them, right? And so when things come to me, I look at them carefully. How is this going to serve me? How is this going to serve the people, kind of thing that I want to help? And then I go from there, right? And it's not that I don't have other opportunities. It's just that the other opportunities that came to me didn't strike that like I said, when I first thought about going to the pen, it was a matter of praying to Creator. Do I take the 90 days and take a chance, and or do I take the full-time job? And for me, it was like something was telling me to take that 90 days, and that 90 days turned into, like I said, it ended up gifting me one of the best career things I've ever done in my life, which is the Wellbriety program, right? And so for me, it's just about wherever my heart takes me, right? And for right now, I think because not having the other job work out and stuff was a crushing opportunity, a crushing thing for me. So I think I was still in the phase where, how when something happens to you and you feel like you need to regenerate, kind of thing, like you need to grieve, right, and stuff. And so I think I'm still in that phase of grieving and letting go and moving forward. And I think in order for me to do that, I need to be around my family, right? And what better joy than grandchildren, right, to help you, recover and grieve and, and just be around love, pure love, right? Kind of thing, right? So my grandchildren don't care what I do for a living, right? They don't even know, right? Kind of thing, eh? They just know that grandma runs around like a crazy person when she's there, making them laugh, right? So yeah. So I think, like I said, it's just the philosophy of kinship and helping people. And I want to be able to, when my time is done, whether it's tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, 10 years, 20, 30 years down the road, that I've done what I was supposed to do. That all the trauma and bad things that happened in my life, I don't see them anymore as like, a scarlet letter on me. I see them as like experiences and opportunities for me to grow and to become the person that I am. I don't think I would be the character person that I am had I not gone through everything. How would I know pain if I have never experienced it? How would I know shame, guilt, regret, all that stuff if I hadn't experienced it, right? So, and how would I be able to connect with other people if I hadn't experienced everything I had, right? So, and I think even now when I make decisions and stuff, I always look for experiences. And I think I told you this before, like all the bad things that happen, I don't look at them as like, I try not to look at them as like bad things. I look at them as teaching experiences, right? Like, because I've grown from everything, right? Everything that I've gone through, and so I hope that when my time is done, that I can say, yeah, I've done everything I could, right? With what I've been given, right? You know, and it hasn't been pretty. Sometimes it's been really ugly, you know, kind of thing. And like I said before, you know, I'm kind of estranged from my two oldest children, and that's a heartache, right? You know, kind of thing. And so hopefully, you know, that'll change. But
Yeah, and that hasn't played its full story out either, right?
exactly, for sure, right? For sure. So, you know, like, yeah, so I just think, like I said, like everything happens, I believe everything happens for a reason. And you meet the people on your journey you're supposed to meet, like you said, right? We met randomly, right? You heard about me before you met me, you know, kind of thing, right? And who'd have known that we'd been working on a project together, right? So, you know, I think Creator has plans for us, right? You know,
Yeah.
so, yeah, yeah.
And one of my greatest lessons is once all of life becomes your greatest teacher, then everything has its spot. Nothing's wrong. Nothing's misplaced or out of place.
Yeah.
And it's funny you mentioned, you know, whenever your time is done, as long as you know that you've done the best that you can. I talk about this all the time, and then I said it the other day, like maybe yesterday even, maybe the day before I was talking to someone. I said the bottom line, bro, is when I'm dying and I'm on my deathbed and I kind of go, you know, what's my legacy? What did I leave behind? I just want to know that I left like people in good shape and I did the best that I could. And I look at it like this: I had 2 lives to live. I got 2 living opportunities. God gives everybody free will, and I didn't do very fucking good with my first batch of free will. I did a lot of harm, and I caused a lot of harm, and I had a very miserable existence. Even though some of the times I wouldn't have known that. But I was very angry and I was very violent most of my life. And I said my gift back to God is for me to live my life the way He wants me to. And not to beat myself up when I make mistakes and, you know, all these other things, right? And those 2 little stories resonate with people, and they're just like, okay. Because people get, you know, you talk about making these decisions and not taking this job and taking that job. And basically, people will make decisions based out of the illusion of security, where real security comes in your relationship with Creator to know that He's going to take you where you need to be. And there's so much security in that relationship that no matter what you have, where you are, when you are, you know that you're okay, right? And you just sold everything out of your house that you just finished buying over the last 3 years, and you're a minimalist again, right?
Well, I like to call myself a minimalist, but my friends have told me that I am not even close to being a minimalist. I have some things I can't get rid of. I did give you a plant, though. Hey,
You
I
did,
got rid of a
thank you.
plant.
Oh, that was from your house?
Yeah, that came from Edson. All the way from Edson, yeah. I'm trying to be a minimalist. Let's just put it that way. Let's just leave that alone.
Is she a minimalist?
That's a touchy subject.
She's like a hoarder. Oh, no.
No, I'm not. I'm not that bad. I couldn't get an episode on hoarders or anything like that. But
Yeah, no. Well, anyway, it's just been a hoot having you here. And, you know, I know you're probably taking off Friday. I'm glad that we finally got to have this face-to-face, and I look forward to working with you. And one more thing before I shut off the cameras to the people. Like, as we discussed us working together, and like this opportunity, in my opinion, is it's going to be a very successful opportunity where people would want shares in it. They would want partnerships. They would want some type of like security and control. She's like, the only thing I want is to have no shares, no commitments. I just want to help you get it off the ground and build the foundation and help you all these things and make it happen, use all my connections. And I'm just like, you said the exact opposite than anyone in their right mind would say. And that's why I love you, because that's kind of how I am too, right?
yeah.
So it's amazing. So yeah, I just want to say thank you for coming and joining us. And I look forward to our relationship and you helping us build this program and blow it up, and maybe it can get Canada wide. I really think it could. And so, you know, I really appreciate you, and I hope you have a great time with your grandkids. And
I will, for sure. And thank you for inviting me. I was kind of leery at first. I'm like, why would you want me on a podcast? But it was fun. It was fun.
Yeah, and it just went wherever, right?
Yeah.
Want to give a shout out to your friend?
I would like to say hi to Lauren. She's my personal driver today. But she's much more than that. She's my friend. She's also looking for a job in the industry. No, just kidding. But she really is. Hook me up. I'll let you know. Give you your contact information.
If you're looking for, what's your background?
She is actually a case manager. She works with addiction, justice. Like she's an amazing human being. that
Part
I've known for-
Indigenous?
Yeah, she is.
Full blood part?
Yeah, she's part. Yeah, she's part. But, oh, sorry, I just took this tape off. This doesn't.
That's okay. Your ADD.
But she
kicking
is.
in a
Yeah,
little bit.
she is a very, 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 very beautiful human being. And so I'd like to say, yeah, she's here with me today. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if anyone's looking for that, hit me up and I'll get you in touch. And thank you very much. And awesome.
All right, good. Thank you.
Okay.